Some species of animals have better public relations departments than others. Take lions, for instance. At some point, someone somewhere decided they should be known as king of beasts. When we think lion, we think, unless we happen to be antelopes, strong, brave, majestic. Or bears. Bears, who in reality are aggressive killers, are seen as cuddly, cute, and a comforting image for a small child's toy. Or reindeer. Their marketing department came up with the genius idea of linking their fortunes to Santa's sleigh. Then they invented Rudolph. Suddenly, reindeers stopped being boring animals who live in cold wastelands. Now they are heroes, loved by children and sung about each Christmas. On the other hand, there are cockroaches. Despite the fact that they are adaptable, resourceful, and one of the few species who could breed quickly enough to survive a nuclear holocaust, not many people like them. No one gives their child a cuddly cockroach toy. They need better PR. And then somewhere, in between lions and cockroaches, you have donkeys. Solid, dependable, humble, workmanlike, dull. Possibly, thanks to Winnie the Pooh, whose author was clearly doing PR for the bears, they're possibly seen as sad and probably a bit clumsy. That's what we think of when we read the word donkey. Plodding, dull, solid, but unspectacular. And that means that when we imagine what the crowd saw on a Sunday morning 2,000 years ago, it's completely natural for us to get the wrong end of the stick. As we read that in order to ride into Jerusalem, Jesus found a young donkey and sat upon it. And it's therefore very easy for us to be swayed by the donkey's bad PR as we read what the crowd shouted as he rode in. Blessed is the King of Israel. What kind of king rides a donkey? Presumably a nice, unspectacular, dull one. But don't be fooled. Jesus chose to ride a donkey to say the exact opposite of that. In first century Israel, clambering onto a donkey to enter the capital city meant something very different and much more exciting. Jesus didn't pick the donkey because it happened to be available. He chose it because he wanted to point people to what was written in the holy writings. Do not be afraid, daughter Zion. See, your king is coming, seated on a donkey's colt. Jesus is saying, or rather showing, that the crowds have got one thing right, that he is a king. By riding the donkey, he is making a statement. Your king is here. But he's doing more than that. Matthew didn't write out everything that is written, everything that one of Israel's prophets had uttered 600 years before. Here's what Zechariah said, or rather what God said through Zechariah, and what every Jew lining the roads as Jesus passed by would have known by heart. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. I will take away the chariots from Israel, and the war horses from Jerusalem, and the battle bow will be broken. He will proclaim peace to the nations. His rule will extend from sea to sea, and from river to the ends of the earth. The king which Zechariah is talking about is neither unspectacular nor dull. The king is all-powerful, and his rule is all-encompassing. He will rule from sea to sea, over an empire greater than any the world has ever seen. The king is all-conquering. His people won't need to fight their own battles, because he'll fight and win their battles for them. He will bring peace to the world and freedom to his people. The king will be all perfect. He will be righteous in all he says, decides, and does. How do you spot this king? Zechariah gave just one sign. He would be riding a donkey as Jerusalem shouted joyfully about him. Now, centuries later, a man who had ministered and taught for 3 years reaches the outskirts of Jerusalem, finds a young donkey, and sits upon it. This man is saying, read Zechariah's prediction about a coming king. Then look at me on the donkey. I am that king. I have come to start building my kingdom. And one day, my kingdom will cover every inch of this world. Your king is here. So if you'd been there that Sunday morning, you wouldn't have seen a plodding animal. You'd have seen a limousine, a tank and a throne, all rolled into one and given 4 legs. You'd have seen the means of transport fit for the greatest US president or British monarch. You'd have seen King Jesus, all-powerful, all-encompassing, all-perfect, come to bring victory and freedom and peace to his subjects. And even though you weren't there that morning, it is still great news for you that God has sent a king like this. Firstly, it allows us to be optimistic about the future. One day, Jesus will rule from sea to sea. He will proclaim peace and there will be no more fighting. What a hopeful view of the world's future. And we all need this kind of hope. Without hope, we're just existing. But sometimes when we look at our world, and if we're honest, our own lives, there are more grounds for pessimism than for hope. As peace comes to one place, war breaks out in another. As one politician promises great things, another makes a catastrophic error of judgment. As we get one thing right, we get another thing wrong. Yet still we cling to the idea that tomorrow might just be better than today. Because without hope, we're just existing. As King Jesus rides his donkey, he says, a day is coming that will be infinitely and permanently better than today. No more terror, no more errors, no more letdowns, no more wrong. Secondly, as Jesus rides his donkey, he offers us clarity about our life. We only have one life to live. None of us can see what lies ahead, and many of us know that there are other people who depend on our decisions and efforts. It's quite scary when you think about it. Life is like driving in the dark with broken headlights and no sat-nav or map. But here is a leader who can tell us what life is about. We can be confident that his directions are the best route to follow. We don't need to hope for the best. We can know what is best. Thirdly, as Jesus rides his donkey, he tells us our longings are right. As you look at the conflicts around you and within you, on the pages of the newspaper, maybe in your own family, probably in your own heart, don't you long for peace? Whenever you realise that you're trapped by a decision you once made and can't undo, or by a mistake you regret but can't make up for, or by a decision that someone else made and you are suffering for, don't you long for freedom? As King Jesus rides his donkey, he says, "That's why I've come, to use all my power to proclaim peace and to bring freedom." As we start to realize that Jesus is that King, it makes sense of how the crowds reacted. They heard he was coming and they went to meet him, shouting, "Hosanna! King Jesus, we need your peace and freedom." They recognized him and they welcomed him into their city. Do you recognize King Jesus? Do you see him in freedom and peace? Will you welcome him into your life? On Palm Sunday, as they lined the streets, the crowds praised this King who was coming into their city, into their lives. They recognized that Jesus was worthy of their praise, and together they let their praise resound. Today, 2,000 years later, may we, who know that Palm Sunday simply marks the start of Holy Week, let our praise resound. May we shout, "Hosanna!" to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. God bless you.